Joined now by Yuval Weber. He is an associate professor at the Daniel Morgan Graduate School. Let's talk first about the timing. What do you make of it?
So we're about a month away from the U.S. midterms here in the United States, and the four hackers were arrested in the Netherlands in April. So the Russians have known these guys were arrested back then, but it was revealed today, plus the indictments were today. One could imagine that whatever intelligence they needed to do, like counterintelligence, whatever time they needed to prepare the indictments, this is probably a signal to the Russians to not meddle in the 2018 elections, or at least to the extent that they were meddling in the 2016 elections.
They're saying it's this perfume.
Yeah.
What did you make of their counter argument?
So whatever sort of silly argument, whatever the Russians need to say at that moment in order to either generate whataboutism or to essentially throw the international media off the trail, they'll say it in that moment. Also today, they accused Donald Rumsfeld, the previous Secretary of Defense, of having run a pharmaceutical operation in the country of Georgia that killed dozens of people there. So really just throwing things, whatever needs to be done.
I know I've asked this question of you before. Everyone has. Is this a new low between the relations between the West and Russia, or can we go lower?
We can always go lower. That's the magic of this relationship, because there is so much history as well as a lot of nuclear weapons. There's a lot of things that could go wrong in this relationship. So tomorrow always could be worse. So for instance, if there is, let's say, a lot of election meddling coming up this month, what we would then see is that in the U.S. Congress, there are two very, very strict sanctions bill. One, DASCA, which is introduced by Lindsey Graham. The other, the Deter Act, introduced by Marco Rubio. And both of those have provisions that would effectively isolate and almost destroy the Russian economy. So we can certainly get much worse than this one.
And what's the likelihood of that? I mean, do you expect more sanctions?
There probably will be more sanctions, because even since the last round of sanctions in August 2017, the CATSA that some of the viewers may remember, there's been plenty of malign activity, including the Skripal events and so forth. So the real difference is the amount of meddling that occurs basically over the course of this month determines how stringent the DASCA or deter bills will be. They could be fairly light with not too much additional enforcement, or they could be pretty severe. And so that's the thing that we see in the Congress right now. It's probably one of the few things that Democrats and Republicans can agree upon, is that there is a need to punish Russia for its malign activities.
Cyber espionage, how big a problem is it?
Oh, it's in everything right now. We're probably being hacked as we speak. So the people who were arrested in April and who are indicted today, they come from the same units which have been associated with the break-ins of the MH17 investigation. That was the jetliner that was shot over Ukraine, the anti-doping of the Olympics, the DNC hack of 2015-16. So all of the things that when we associate the phrase Russian hacking, the guys that were arrested in April and that were indicted today, they're from those units. And that's just what I just mentioned is just a sliver. If we had maybe 20, 30, 40 minutes, I could go through much more.
You're a guy who watches this relationship very closely. What do you be watching for in the days ahead, months ahead?
We'll look for the Russian reaction. Today, of course, they had to, clutch the pearls, be very aggrieved by these actions. If they don't do very much in return and just accept these indictments and so forth, what we can expect is that they've gotten the message not to interfere in these elections and to try to stave off further sanctions. If they don't take that message, and we see a lot more Facebook, Twitter, the social media, all these different sorts of hacks, maybe releases of embarrassing information, then what we can take is that the Russians can't or won't be deterred by anything that the United States does, and then we'll be in the very negative space thereafter. And that can include sanctions on Russian energy, sanctions on Russian banks, sanctions on the Russian financial system, and then we're really in bad place.
Yeah, the list goes on and on, doesn't it? Yuval, thanks so much. Always great to see you. Appreciate it.